Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frosty Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's going on, Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, Santa Barbara, anywhere in the Southland you are, or for the world that matter, if you're listening on podcast. We are live on the Mightier 1090 and on YouTube. LAFB Network is the channel, or listen to us on any podcast platform on the LA Football Network. This is the LA Football Show. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Welcome in. Happy Friday. Hope the commute's going well. Ready for a great weekend. Little cooler temperatures, hopefully, here in the Southland. But we got a packed show for you again, so I'm not gonna take too much time talking about nothing. Got a packed show, packed preview show for upcoming football this weekend. First, I'm gonna be joined by Evan Wanish. He is a co-host of the Cannon Fire podcast, covering all things Buccaneers, so we can preview this Matthew Stafford, Tom Brady, Rams, Bucks. Big matchup on Sunday. I think it's the game of the week. I don't know how this isn't like a Sunday night or Monday night game. I know they give the Rams and Bucks a lot of those games, but this should have been one of them. But anyway, we'll get all into that. That'll be at the top of the hour, or I guess, right after I'm done with all this. So we'll dive into that. And then I'll talk a little USC. Some big news coming out of USC. We've been at practice, this week. Jackson Dart, stud, broke records last week against Washington State. True freshman, future of the team, had surgery, kind of secretly, not talked about at all. We'll get into that. And at the bottom of the hour, we got a big Chargers matchup with the Chiefs, AFC West showdown. I'm going to be joined by Charles Goldman of the Chiefs Wire to help me break that down, give us some insight on the Chiefs. Not that we need any, we know how good they are, but see if this Chargers team has a chance. And then to wrap up the LA Football Show this week, my friend, former UCLA quarterback Cory Paus, jumping on with me to give the perspective that only he can. If you haven't heard Cory Paus, you're going to want to stick around. The dude is funny as hell, and he is the man. So he'll be joining me to talk about UCLA, DTR, and what's coming up with their matchup in Stanford. Show is always brought to you by Brewery X. What better way to start your weekend off than with some great beer? And the best beer in the Southland is made right in Anaheim at Brewery X. You can find them on the La Palma Beer Trail, right off the 57 freeway, right near the Honda Center and Angel Stadium. Giant beer garden, 30 beers on tap, 10 hard seltzers. They got it all. Great food. Dude, the pizza to die for. They got a little pizza truck out there, a little buffalo chicken pizza. Oh, fantastic. But go for the beer, stay for the pizza, and come back for the great times. Or you can find them in Total Wine, Bevmo, Trader Joe's, anywhere you get alcohol at in the Southland. Brewery X is out. That should be their tagline. Did I just come up with their marketing for them? Come for the beer, stay for the food, return for the great times. I like that, Brewery X. All right. With that being said, though, guys, hope the Friday's going great. Let's get right into this. Here is joining me now, Evan Wanish of Cannon Fire Podcast. Let's go Rams. Joining me now to preview this, I think the game of the week. Rams, Buccaneers. The second bout between these two powerhouses. Obviously, the Bucs took the Super Bowl last year, so they have a little more clout coming into this game. But should be a great one at SoFi here in LA. And joining me, Evan Wanish. He is, we'll say, the better half of the Cannon Fire podcast, covering everything Buccaneers. Evan, what's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Good. I am flattered that I'm the better half. I don't know if I could take that title, but I definitely appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, we'll see if your co-host listens to this and what he has to say about this. So, but yeah, man, thanks. So excited to get your perspective on this game, because I think it's going to be a great one. You have Matthew Stafford now in LA, so the storylines of Stafford against Brady, and obviously everything the Bucs have done, and every one they haven't lost in this offseason, and now is back. So first, let me just get your thoughts on this overall Bucs team, what they've done so far. I mean, we know what happened last year, but coming into this year, starting off 2-0, they've looked pretty dynamic on offense and defense. I'd say they've had some struggles, but overall, buckle down when it mattered most. What's been your thoughts on this Bucs team so far 2 weeks in?
Yeah, I do think, especially, when you look at the Dallas game, which was a much closer game than the Atlanta one, they really made the plays when they needed to. I think if you ask some people, the Dallas game was a little bit too close for comfort, which I do agree. It's the concerning thing is that the self-inflicted mistakes. That's what's basically holding the offense back. I think thought the offense for the first 2 weeks has been masterful. Obviously, the Falcons' defense isn't really anything to write home about, but the Cowboys' defense gave them some fits. But there was a ball went right through Leonard Fournette's hands and into the defender's hands. Then they had the fumble, and it was just a mess. And they were able to clean up a little bit better versus Atlanta. Overall, I'm not really worried about the offense, but like you said, the defense has shown a little bit of vulnerability, especially against the pass. I mean, teams just aren't even really attempting to run against this football team anymore because, as you've seen in the past, that doesn't really work. Yeah, there's no point. So, obviously, every team is a weakness, and the Bucs' biggest weakness right now is the secondary. They've been playing a lot of zone coverage, and Dak Prescott, Matt Ryan, two veteran quarterbacks, have been able to really exploit that, and they got a veteran coming up here, Matthew Stafford, so they got to be ready for it.
Yeah, I can't wait. And the big matchup for me in this one is going to be this Rams offensive line against this defensive front. As you mentioned, one of the best in the game, superb against the run. And this Rams offensive line, that there was a lot of question marks coming in because they were very solid last year, graded out as a third overall unit, but then you lose Austin Blythe in free agency. It was thought to be Austin Corbett. Rams fans have heard this story all too many times, but thought to be Austin Corbett. Made the decision halfway through training camp to promote Brian Allen as a starting center and slide Corbett back over to guard where he is better. And so there was a lot of uneasiness with that. A lot of uneasiness. I mean, if you were ever on Rams Twitter, like a lot of people talk about, quarterback issues or this, it was like center gate. Like that's all the talk of Rams Twitter was center and who was going to actually play center and why they didn't draft Creed Humphrey and all this and that. Well, Brian Allen's been one of the top graded centers so far through 2 weeks. Again, it's just 2 weeks, but he's looked very good and looked good against his opponents. And this offensive line has performed pretty well. But they haven't gone up against this Bucs front with Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, JPP is actually out. So that's, a good thing for the Rams, I guess. Never want to see injuries. But I guess my question for you is, what makes this Bucs defensive front so good and so dominant? They were on display at the Super Bowl, which obviously that's one of the major reasons why you guys won. But what makes this defensive front so good and so hard to run against?
Yeah, I think it's really who wasn't there last year when these two teams faced, and that was Vita Vea. Vita Vea got injured earlier in the year and didn't play in that game. And I think if the Bucs want to win, it's going to be Vita Vea almost making the difference. And just one man alone, he's so big that he's able to eat up so much space, and that just takes away any run game. But also, he's starting to develop as a pass rusher more, not necessarily getting those sacks, but starting to push the offensive lineman back into the quarterback. I think almost everybody saw what he did to the Cowboys center a few weeks ago, just literally just drove him right into Dak Prescott, and he just has so much strength. So I think the Bucs like their edge guys to get there, but they're also really getting a good push up front from Vita Vea. The only concern is right now the defensive line isn't producing sacks. They're producing pressures. They're one of the top teams in the NFL in terms of pressures, but they only have 2 sacks, the one per game. And that's got to be better, and it has to be better in this game. So I think what makes the defensive line so special is Vita Vea. He was sorely missed. They were able to get by during the regular season without him. And, I mean, once the playoffs hit and they played Aaron Rodgers and then Patrick Mahomes, it just made all the difference in the world having that guy. So I think that's a big key here, and that's something that the Rams got to prepare for. Because like I said, Vita Vea wasn't there last year when these two teams played.
Yeah, I think what it's going to come down to is, they're basically going to isolate their tackles and make them, the one-on-one matchups on the edge, because they're going to have to double team Vita. I mean, as good as Brian Allen has been, just size pound for pound, Allen's he's listed at 6'2", 300. I don't believe that. I think he's more like 5'11", maybe 6 foot, probably like 290, maybe 300. But Vita Vea is what, 350, like 6'5". Yeah. The dude is a mountain. So they're gonna have to double team him, slide Corbett or David Edwards over to help out with that, which is gonna isolate your tackles on stuff like that. So that's gonna be the real thing of how they can utilize that, how Rob Havenstein plays and how Andrew Whitworth plays, and then also just how Matthew Stafford's able to manipulate the pocket. One of the biggest things for passers like Matthew Stafford is being able to, and Tom Brady, I mean, you guys know well, being able to step up in the pocket. If they have to slide side to side, so be it, but still able to manipulate the pocket and step up into throws. if your nose tackle, Vita Vea, is able to completely destroy, the center of that and force Stafford to elude him or escape the pocket, that's going to take away a lot of those big playability, and probably why you guys have had success against some of these teams, even when your secondary struggled.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, moving up in the pocket, stepping up, it's tough to do that when you got a guy like Vita Vea right in the middle. So, yeah, that's going to be a big factor, and I am interested to see, the matchups, and I do agree that you're gonna have to double team Vita Vea, and just let Ndamukong Suh be one-on-one, let Shaq Barrett and Joe Tryon Shoyinka, the rookie who's expected to be in JPP's place, just let them have their one-on-one matchups and hope for the best. Obviously the Rams group of tackles are still really good, so I think that it'll be a tougher task for the Bucs to get pressure from the edges. I think they're going to have to get inside. I think this is going to be a game where Ndamukong Suh's going to have to step up because he is going to be getting those one-on-one matchups. So, yeah, Stafford has been a great quarterback at doing that, though. Really feeling the pocket, getting the ball out when it needs to get out. And I think, I don't think he's as underrated now, because you can't be so underrated when everybody's talking about you. But, I just think Matthew Stafford's been, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but he played in Detroit, so nobody actually realized just how good he was.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we feel. And then, it was automatic when the trade happened. It was this, okay, what an upgrade. And then randomly, I think it's just because of the long off season, you start getting these detractors we never won a playoff game. He had talent. He didn't elevate his team. He didn't change the culture. He didn't do all this. And it's all right, now I think people are just, paralysis by overanalysis, looking too much into things, because we've seen what the dude can do 2 weeks in when he has the right offensive scheme, when he has the weapons, when he has an offensive line protecting. And so it's been exciting for us Rams fans to see. But man, what an embarrassment of riches you guys have from when you're Ndamukong Suh's got to step up, Shaq Barrett step up. These are all Pro Bowl guys who are playing well. This is a kind of random tangent, but did Joe Tryon ever play with Vita Vea at Washington, or was Vea gone right before Tryon got there? I
believe Tryon was getting there as Vea was leaving. I don't believe they ever played with each other, but I believe Joe Tryon might have been a freshman when Vita Vea was declaring for the draft. So maybe there was a slight crossover there, but I don't believe they ever played with each other.
Gotcha. Love that. I love the Tryon pick. I mean, when you guys had everyone returning, it's you're basically just, okay, pick whoever best player available, because we don't need anything. That helps. Looking at offense, it's such a dynamic group and how good they've been. First of all, put you on the spot here. Is Antonio Brown going to be available? Because I know he popped up on the COVID list, but from what I heard, because he's vaccinated, he can actually get off it with a negative test within 24 hours or something. I mean, what do you know about that situation?
Yeah, so he does need 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. So he's not declared out. There still is a chance that he could play, because he is 100. The Bucs are 100% vaccinated as a team, so he can still play. However, the way Bruce Arians sounded, it doesn't sound like it's something they're expecting. So I would expect Antonio Brown to be out, which would mean more reps for a guy like Tyler Johnson or Scotty Miller, who I know a lot of people remember for the Green Bay game last year, sort of at the buzzer. So that's what Miller brings, sort of similar to Deshaun Jackson, just a deep threat. But as far as Brown's status for the game, he's not officially declared out, but most likely he won't be playing.
Got it. Okay. Well, again, don't like to see it. You want to see the best on the best, but another maybe break for the Rams. Having to cover already Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk's resurgence, or at least in the end zone so far this year. OJ Howard still. So how much do you guys? Jaylen Ramsey, he's so fascinating to cover because he doesn't cover like a journalist. Fascinating to watch cover people too, but he doesn't necessarily follow one person around. He plays a kind of a star position where he's moving all over the field, plays in the nickel, plays in the slot, plays on the outside. I would assume because of size wise, he'll be on Mike Evans a lot, just because of, he's kind of our biggest DB that would match up well against him. But what's kind of your thoughts as an opposing fan, as an opposing person that covers your team, on Jaylen Ramsey and what he means to a defense when you're an offense trying to attack him?
I mean, I personally think Jaylen Ramsey's probably a top 2 corner in the NFL. He might be the best. I just think he's just so good at what he does. And just like you said, he's not strictly an outside guy. He's not strictly an inside guy. He can play everywhere and do it at an elite level. So it's definitely going to be a challenge. And obviously without Antonio Brown, you kind of lose that little advantage that the Bucs have of, well, how good is your team's third or fourth corner going to be? So they now can key in on Mike Evans, key in on Chris Godwin. And a lot of that's going to be with Jaylen Ramsey. I do believe last year's matchup, Jaylen Ramsey played against Mike Evans most of the time when they were matched up. I believe Mike Evans had 4 catches for like 40 yards or so. And the one touchdown Mike Evans had, Jaylen Ramsey wasn't even covering him. So Jaylen Ramsey did a pretty good job against Mike Evans last year. And, I think I read somewhere that, and, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Jaylen Ramsey's played a lot in the slot this season so far. Just in Raheem Morris's defense, he's played a lot in the slot, and that's where Chris Godwin mostly plays in this offense. So you could be seeing maybe a little bit of Chris Godwin versus Jaylen Ramsey, but it's so tough to game plan for a guy like that because you want to take your chances and not completely ignore him because that would, ineffectively shut down a part of your offense, but also you got to be careful. You really got to pick your poison there, and because he'll make it pay.
Yeah, that's been kind of because he played kind of slot and all over last year too, and for whatever reason, I mean, these are just maybe it's old time media or people just don't watch football enough. But that's been one of like the knocks on him is he's not the Darrelle Revis of like there's no Ramsey Island. Like he just whatever game it is, whatever matchup, he covers the number one receiver and shuts him down. But because they move him all over the place, they want to put him in best positions to succeed and best positions to help the defense. And, I think he, in my opinion, and bias aside, I think he is the best corner in the game because of how much he can do, how versatile he is. He's played some safety, even played deep a little bit. So he can do so much. And he'll be asked, it's a tall order against this Bucs offense. And, the best way that can help him out is if this Rams defensive line and this Rams edge rushers can get to Tom Brady because we all know the difference of Tom Brady when he's under pressure or when he's, feels the pressure a lot as opposed to a clean pocket. So how has your guys' offensive line looked? I mean, I've watched and I can see, but I'll let you tell me. One of the best returning offensive lines, I think, in the game. Tom Brady's looked, fantastic. What does he have? Like 8 touchdowns already this season or 7 or something
9,
like that?
Yeah.
Not 9. Okay, there you go. Ridiculous. Already in an MVP race. How's the offensive line looked and do they show any signs of slowing down?
Yeah, I mean, versus Dallas, I thought they were pretty good. There was a few plays where some things broke down. They haven't been as good as they were last year, I don't think. But it's a new season, sort of getting all the rust in. This team didn't play a lot of starters in the preseason, whatever. Versus Atlanta, they had a few breakdowns. A lot of it, though, is their not even the offensive line, it's their running backs and their running backs' inability to pick up the blitz. And that is something that is going to have to improve. Because teams are just blitzing the crap out of the Bucs when Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette are in there, and especially Ronald Jones. I mean, there was a sack last week allowed, and Ronald Jones didn't even touch Debo Jones and just let him go, and it was a sack. So that's honestly what I'm most concerned about. The overall offensive line, Tom Brady is still getting the ball out so quickly that it does help the offensive line, but also a lot of that's the coverage. So it all depends on the type of coverage that the Rams are playing. And I think they're obviously the Bucs offensive line is going to have their hands full with Aaron Donald, as it's always a challenge, even though the past 2 matchups, they've done a decent job against Donald, but he's probably the best defensive player in football. I wouldn't want to take my chances, just sort of ignoring him. And, it's going to be a challenge. I really do think, but I think the Bucs offensive line is up for it. I just don't know if they can sustain it through a whole 60 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be, that's the biggest storyline for this Rams team is how they can get to Brady. And that's going to be the way to slow it down. Because last year they were able to an extent and force some uncharacteristic turnovers. Jordan Fuller, the rookie at the time, had 2 interceptions. We were just kind of like sailed balls from Brady trying to get rid of it after feeling the pressure throughout the game. So that's going to be the big thing. And Leonard Floyd, popped up on the injury report this week, is kind of dealing with an ankle that he injured back in camp. And they're more so just, monitoring it and wanted to, keep him off it in practice. So I would assume he'll be a go at this game time because he'll be needed. I mean, they're going to need everyone they can get to get after it if they want to remain undefeated. So before I want to end with a few I guess you can call them prop bets or whatever, just like player on player. But before that, let's get to a score prediction here. What do you feel in this game? Overall matchup. Who do you like? What's the score you're thinking? I mean, the score aside, but what do you like, and who do you think's taking it in round 2 of this juggernaut matchup?
Yeah, so I cover the Bucs obviously, but I'm not one of those people that is always going to pick the Buccaneers, and it is a tough matchup for the Bucs. I mean, I'm going to be honest. This is the type of defense that the Rams play, and especially the Rams offense now. That might be even more concerning to me because it seems like they're clicking at a perfect time. And Todd Bowles' defenses, they haven't been able to really figure out what Sean McVay is doing on offense. Obviously, not many can, but they've really struggled, and they've struggled to contain Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. And if it wasn't for Jared Goff's few turnovers that really kept the Bucs in some games, they might not have been as close. Now you have Matthew Stafford in there, who I believe is an upgrade. So, and he's looked really good through the first 2 weeks. I think this is a really tough matchup. Last year, even in the playoffs, the one team that I didn't want the Bucs to play was the Rams. I just didn't like the matchup. Some teams play people better than others. The Packers were the 1 seed, and the Bucs played them better than some other teams did. It happens. Yeah. So for this particular matchup, I do have the Rams winning. I think the Bucs are just going to come up just a tad short. I think last year was a 3-point game. I think this year will also be a 3-point game. I'll go 31-28 Rams.
Yeah, I like it. And I agree with you. It's hard because you look at last year, like, okay, the Rams were able to win I believe in Tampa.
Yep.
With Jared Goff as their quarterback. It's like, okay, well, now they're at home with fans. They have Matthew Stafford. But I believe last year also was fairly early on in the season as well, and the Bucs offense is substantially better now than it was at the beginning of last season. I mean, we saw that, hence why they won the Super Bowl. I think in week 6 or 7 last year, no one was thinking the Bucs had a shot to win the Super Bowl just because the offense wasn't quite there yet, and we saw how that matured and matriculated. So when I look at that, I'm like, okay, this is a different Bucs team than what the Rams saw last year. It's a different Rams teams too. Like I said, different center, different quarterback, a few different pieces on defense, different defensive coordinator. So I think it's going to be good. I think the Rams, which a storyline always in football lately in the nation is about these LA fans and is there true home field advantage? I think the Rams do have true home field advantage in this game. And this new beautiful SoFi gets so loud and so rocking. And so I think it's going to be an awesome environment for this Rams football team, welcoming in the Super Bowl champs. So I agree. I think it's going to be very, very close. I hate being homerish, but I like the Rams in this one too, just because, like you said, the matchups I think work up well. And I think Matthew Stafford's kind of the wild card, and he's the one piece that I think will push them over the edge. And I think he throws for over 300 in this one. Hasn't done that yet this year. Had a huge game in week 1, had a good comeback win in week 2, but hasn't had that like 300-yard performance yet. I think he gets that this week. But I agree. I think it's a 3-point game. So I think the defenses will tighten up a little bit. At some point, I think we'll see some flurrying of scoring. Then we'll see some tighten up, and then flurrying of scoring to end it. I'm going to go 38-35. So I'm going to go high scoring in this one. I don't even know what the over-under is. Do you?
I'm not sure. I think it was like 55, I think. I think last I checked it.
I think they'll smash that. I think they'll smash the over-under. We'll see.
Normally Bucs games do. I think that the past 2 times if you've taken the over, Bucs games have gone the over. So
there you go. Which is so funny because the Super Bowl is like they had the most dominant defense we've seen in a long time in the Super Bowl against probably one of the best offenses we've seen in a long time, the Chiefs. So it's just so funny how that happens and how it changes so quickly. All right, so let's do a couple just head-to-head player matchup prop bets brought to you by our friends at Play Pickup. More yards in this game passing, Tom Brady or Matthew Stafford?
I'll go Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford by a hair. I think it'll be close, but I think Matthew Stafford just because I think the Bucs are going to try to run the ball a little bit, and Sean McVay just hasn't really run the ball against the Bucs at all in their matchup, so I wouldn't expect that to change. I think the Rams are going to want to air it out.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really run the ball at all, which has been one of my biggest gripes. I think on your show last year, I said that the Rams need to run the ball 30 plus times, and they never did. They don't listen to me, but hey, they're good still, so it's okay. Let me ask you this first before we do this prop. Who is your guys' main running back? Is it Ronald Jones or is it Leonard Floyd? Or Leonard Fournette, excuse me. I think fantasy owners want to know.
I wish I could give fantasy owners the answer. I don't know at this point. I mean, if you're talking about who I think is the best running back, I still believe in terms of talent, I think Ronald Jones is more talented than Leonard Fournette. But it's just such a mental game struggle for Ronald Jones right now. And I would expect in this game, if I were the Rams, I would be going into this game expecting to see more of Leonard Fournette than of Ronald Jones. I think you'll see a little bit of Ronald Jones, but I think you would see Leonard Fournette a tad bit more.
Yeah, it's every week is different. Being a SC guy, I'm always rooting for Ronald Jones. I want to see him make that. It's like you'll have one game, we're like, okay, there it is. There's his coming out party, and then the next game, and like the second drive, he fumbles, and then it's like, okay, back in the doghouse and can't quite get it. So it's interesting. And with the Rams, we didn't even talk about this. Daryl Henderson battling a rib injury, so he may not even be a go on Sunday. I don't think he's officially been ruled out yet, but it's not looking. He came out in the fourth quarter last week, so now Sony Michel thrust into the starting role, who they just traded for. So it'll be interesting to see his workload. Jake Funk, the rookie out of Maryland, will be backing him up if Daryl Henderson can't go, or they may do one of those, dress Daryl Henderson, but he's in like emergency situation only. So it's going to be a Sony Michel show, I think, regardless. So I guess to ask you now, prop bet, more yards from scrimmage. We'll do scrimmage. So passing and running. Sony Michel, or I guess Leonard Fournette, since you said you think he will get more touches.
I'll go Leonard Fournette just because I do think until Sean McVay does it, I just don't think he's going to run the ball much, especially against a Todd Bowles defense that is really struggled against the pass right now. Like really, really struggled. Dak Prescott threw 58 times week one. So I just don't know if Sony Michel is going to get the amount of touches that Leonard Fournette will, because the Bucs still try to feed Leonard Fournette the ball. He's not a receiving back, but they still try to feed it to him. It's one of my biggest gripes. Yeah, they signed Giovanni Bernard, who is a really good receiving back, but they're still using Leonard Fournette as that receiving type back. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'll say Leonard Fournette gets more scrimmage yards.
Okay, so I'm gonna go Sony Michel just because I agree with you. I think if we're purely rushing yards, 100%. I think Leonard Fournette, but I think they will utilize Sony Michel in the passing game quite a bit if the checkdowns are there. And I know it's his first game starting with the Rams. It's only literally his fourth week with the team after being traded right at the end of training camp before the season started. So, he's still new to the system, but I think because of his experience just playing in the league, because of the talent he has, I think they'll try to get him going early. So I'll go Sony Michel by a hair, but it's going to be all basically passing. I think he gets one like screen pass for like 35 yards, and that's going to give him the edge over Leonard Fournette. So, all right, more receiving yards. And this is always hard to put because both teams have all good receivers. I mean, these are some of the best receivers in football on two teams, I would say. But I'll go Cooper Kupp with the Rams. He's been kind of the lead dog for the Rams so far. The Bucs, I'll let you pick one on this prop because it seemed like week one, it was more the Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin show. Week two seemed to be the Mike Evans show. So first, I guess, question, who do you think is the lead receiver we're going to see targeted? Obviously, no Antonio Brown targeted this week. And then who are you pitting up against Cooper Kupp and who you're taking versus Cooper Kupp?
I think they're going to want to keep Mike Evans in a role. I think they're going to target him a lot. So I would say Mike Evans. And I'm going to put him against Cooper Kupp, and I'm going to take Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp has just been an absolute killer to this defense. The previous 2 years these two teams played, last time being in LA in that crazy 55-40 game, Cooper Kupp just ran wild, and then in Tampa did the same thing. Until the Bucs show me that they can stop this guy, I'm going to assume that he's going over 100, and I don't believe that Mike Evans is going over 100 yards, even though I do believe they're going to want to try and get him the football. So I'll say Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, it's going to be a good match. And, it's been so fun to see. Kupp's been great since he's been here, but seeing him unleashed now with Matthew Stafford. So, okay, let's do this last one. Let's give some defense some love. More sacks, Shaq Barrett or Aaron Donald? I'll
go Shaq Barrett. The Bucs, I know, betting against Aaron Donald is not something I like to do, but the Bucs have done a really good job against Aaron Donald the past two seasons, and he hasn't really. It's been other guys along the defensive line. It's been the Michael Brockers. It's been Leonard Floyd. It's been those types of guys that have really given the Bucs fits. And I think they have a solid plan against Aaron Donald, and it seems to work. They don't double team him exclusively every single play, but most of the time they do. And he'll make his plays because he's always going to get his. Yeah. But I think Shaq Barrett would get more sacks in this game than Aaron Donald.
I agree with you. I think the combination of how good Tampa's offensive line is and how they're able to, neutralize Aaron Donald and give opportunities for the other guys that you just mentioned. And then I think because of how important Vita Vea is going to be in this game, like we talked about earlier, and all the focus on him, you're leaving one-on-one matchups with one of the best pass rushers in the game, and Shaq Barrett. So I think he's going to get home maybe a couple times in this one. Hope not, fingers crossed, but I think, he's just that good. Hey, Colorado State product, got to shut him out. And play with the Broncos for a bit, won a Super Bowl. So he's done great things and made a good career out there already. So, Evan, it's been fun. Appreciate you so much for coming on the show. Should be a great, great game this Sunday. Looking forward to it. Where can everyone find you at your work? Where are you at on Twitter? Just how can people find you?
Yeah, so find me on Cannon Fire Podcast. I am the co-host. I do it with my buddy Rhett. Find us on YouTube and anywhere you can find a podcast. And you can also find me on Twitter at EvanNFL.
Yeah, Evan NFL. I still can't believe you got that name. That's great.
Very. I'm not a very creative person when it comes to usernames, so I was like, I wonder if this will work, and it somehow did.
Yeah, no one take Evan. Okay, I'm gonna look if Ryan NFL has been taken now. I'm just curious. I changed mine, but well, Evan, appreciate you, man. Enjoy the game, and hopefully we'll catch up soon. I'm sure we'll chat during the game a little bit. So best of luck to you. But yeah, thanks again for coming on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
There he goes. Thanks to Evan for jumping on with me. As I've said before, all of these full-length interviews will be on the LA Football Network. Just search the LA Football Show anywhere you listen to podcasts, or just go to our YouTube page at LAFB Network, and you can listen to the full interviews because I just don't have enough time on the radio here. Tell 1090 our guy Ryan needs more time because, we're getting deep into these conversations, and they just go longer than, 9 minutes, which is what I'm kind of allotted here. So, but if you want the full thing, LA Football Network, LAFB Network on YouTube, anywhere you get your podcast, you'll get the full length of all of these. So I'm going to say that every week. Keep pumping it home. Would love for you to come and check us out anyway, aside from just on radio. So, but thanks, Evan. So before we take a break, quickly about USC. So Jackson Dart, a meniscus tear is what we're hearing during that game, that stellar performance against Washington State. Real quiet. No breaking news. Didn't come out real, like after the game, everyone all of a sudden, Jackson Dart's not at practice on Tuesday. Not a practice again on Wednesday. And then we hear he had surgery and is out indefinitely. It hasn't been said it's season ending. I'll be there at the game Saturday, so I'll try to do some digging and figure out what we can find for you guys. But he is obviously not a go this Saturday at home against Oregon State. Good news is Keaton Slovis has been practicing and has looked good, so he should be good to go. I know everyone all of a sudden is now all on the Jackson Dart train, and rightfully so because he played great. But Keaton Slovis is still the starter of this team. Has been the starter for the last 2 seasons. Hopefully this kind of, pushes him, elevates his game because he has not looked great to start the season in the 2-1 drive that he's played so far. Hasn't looked horrible, but it hasn't looked sharp. Hasn't looked great. And what I've talked about in the last show when recapping that big win for Dante Williams and Jackson Dart, what made Dart so good and what makes this offense go, because the offense has not looked good for probably over a year now. If you remember back to Keaton Slovis' freshman year, everyone was excited about the air raid. Like, oh, this is fun. We're putting up points. We're slinging the ball all over the playground. What makes it go and what makes it tick is your quarterback's decision making. It's not a read system, right? And that's why quarterbacks that come from air raid can struggle in the pros because they're not used to making progressions. Air raid, you pick your poison kind of pre-snap. You know what it's going to be, because you can see in the defense, okay, this guy's going to be open. You trust that decision pre-snap, and boom, you sling it. It's quick. Snap, decision, throw. It's not a snap, progression 1, progression 2, progression 3, check down. That's not how the air raid's supposed to go. Pick your spot and go. You got to just trust it. And typically it works in college. Keaton Slovis started getting into that progression, not trusting his initial decision, trying to make decisions on the fly. And that's not what works in the air raid. And that's why it just wasn't humming like it's supposed to hum. Jackson Dart, being a true freshman, didn't have anything to lose, going out there just like, hey, we're down 14. Let's just go out and have some fun and play like we're on the playground. If you watch him, snap, boom, decision made. First 2 drives was kind of getting the feel of it. But then when they put up 20 in the third, that's what it was. Go back and watch the tape. Snap, decision, boom. Looked great. So hopefully Slovis will get back to that because he has the ability to. Dart has a bigger arm than him. He's a bigger body. But don't forget how great Slovis was his freshman year. He didn't just fall into the job because JT Daniels got hurt. He lucked out in that instance, and then he stole the job and forced JT to transfer because that's how good Slovis played his freshman year, and there was no giving that job back. So he has the ability. Hopefully, mentally, he'll just now be like, okay, let's trust the system because they just put up 45 points. So let's get back to that. Big game against Oregon State. I will be there. I'll do some more digging for you guys. So make sure to follow me on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. I'll be updating all game long. We're looking at a way to get our like a live chat on LAFBnetwork.com. So you can come to the site for our content. We'll have like a live blog and a chat there. For those of you at home watching, want to meet other fans. Twitter is great, but we'd love for a community, our community that we've already built, to all be able to come to one place and hang out virtually and chat. So we're working on that. We'll keep you posted. So anyway, going to take a quick break here. We'll be right back, and I'll be joined by Charles Goldman to break down this or to preview this Chargers Chiefs. And then right after that, Cory Paus will be joining me. Stay tuned. Joining me now on the LA Football Show right here on the Mightier 1090, also on LA Football Network, is Charles Goldman. As I mentioned, he is the managing editor for the Chiefs Wire. He's going to help us break down this AFC West matchup, Week 3 NFL football, with our Los Angeles Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Should be a great, great game. Excited to get into it. But Charles, how you been, man? It's been a while. You've been on the show before, but glad to have you back now on the radio. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back on.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. So it's going to be a good matchup for sure. And for those watching video right now on YouTube, you got to show off that shirt a little bit.
I know. You like this? Foco sent this to me. They sent me like a little Chiefs care package.
Okay.
And the last day of summer was the other day. I'm trying to get some use out of it before it gets too cold out here.
There you go. It looks great. I mean, being a non-Chiefs fan, it looks great, but repping the team. So for those not watching, it's a full, basically it looks like a plaid shirt, but it's just Chiefs logos and emblems. So well done.
It's got some like condiments on it too, and some hot dogs. I think it's like supposed to be like tailgate themed.
Okay.
It's fun.
I see that. And Mahomes has the whole ketchup thing. And
Right.
That makes sense. So, all right, man, cool. Let's get into it because this is gonna be a good matchup. Both teams coming in 1-1. Let me start off with you with this. How shocked was Chiefs Kingdom that Baltimore pulled off that win? I know Baltimore's a good team. They're a playoff team. Lamar Jackson is great. But I think most Chiefs fans think the Chiefs are going 17-0 every year. They thought that back when, Elvis Gerbach was your quarterback. So that's just the pride of Chiefs Kingdom. But what was the emotion with fans after that game last week?
I don't think they took it very well because, all you heard about all week leading up to the game was like Baltimore's beat up. They got like 20 guys on injured reserve. They're starting left tackles out. All these guys on defense, offense are out. No running backs, yada, yada, yada. And, it was just a struggle to get anything going defensively during the game for Kansas City. I mean, they couldn't stop the run. They were struggling. They were blowing some coverages. Luckily, Lamar missed a couple throws on some of those blown coverages, or it could have been a lot worse. But, I think now people are settling and realizing, okay, it's a 1-point loss. Like, we were in position to win the game. We just didn't do enough. And I think that's kind of the big takeaway, what people have to come away with from it heading into this week is that, the Chiefs are going to be in all of these games, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to get the best shot from every single team they face. And it's not always going to be pretty. Like, they're going to have to grind out some gritty wins. And unfortunately, they fell short of that last week, but now they're looking to turn the page and perhaps get their first AFC West win of the season against Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's 2 weeks into the season, but if you would have told me at any point in the year that atop the AFC West it'd be the Broncos and Raiders, I would have not believed you. but 2 weeks in, they're 2-0, they're 1-1. So one of these teams is going to be at the bottom of the division, which is going to be really interesting to see. And again, it's early, a lot of time to climb out, but with the division as good as it appears to be thus far, that 2-game lead may be a big, big difference heading down the stretch. So turning gears towards this game, and I got to ask you about our quarterback, Justin Herbert, who, got his first career start against the Kansas City Chiefs last year in week 2. Obviously, we all know how great he is, winning Rookie of the Year, how good he looks. The comparison out here a lot is to Mahomes. It seems like nowadays, anytime a quarterback does something good, it's like comparing to Mahomes, right? That he's the gold standard. So let me ask you this: what is the talk about Justin Herbert out in Chiefs Kingdom? Do they know him? Because I talked to Dallas last week, and a lot of people in Dallas don't even know who Justin Herbert is. They're very in their bubble of the Dallas Cowboys. Do the Chiefs recognize real here and have some scary, I guess, thoughts about Justin Herbert, what he can do against this team?
I think Chiefs fans are like well aware of what he's capable of. They might be dismissing him a little bit because the last time they saw him was week 17. He was playing our backups, but they remember what happened that first week. When he came out there, no one knew anything about him. He comes out, he throws for 300 yards, touchdown and interception, but he keeps the Chargers in that game, that week 2 game last season. And I think, real's recognizing real. I mean, you look at what Patrick Mahomes had to say about him just the other day, praising him for the types of throws that he can make and this and that. And he kind of sounded like, hey, I kind of studied this guy. I want to do some of the things that he does. Mm-hmm. So I think the mutual respect is there, definitely on the team side of things. As for the fans, they're always going to be a little skeptical of AFC West teams just because of the record of dominance that the Chiefs have against the AFC West.
Yeah. There should be some, I guess, pride, if you want to call it, or cockiness, if you will, because, you guys have earned it. So, but it seems like the one team that does give them troubles is the Chargers. And we have a different defensive coordinator in our different scheme. No more Gus Bradley, who, as shortcomings as his were here in LA, he did seem to do well scheming up against the Chiefs. So we'll see how they can slow that offense down. But kind of looking back while looking forwards, you talk about the defense against Baltimore and how they really couldn't get anything going. And now they face a very good Chargers offense that hasn't really gotten it going either yet. I mean, we have the talent. We know what they were capable of, but so far this year hasn't scored more than 20 points. And against a pretty porous Cowboys defense, couldn't get more than 17. Made some mistakes in the red zone. Couldn't do that. So when you look at what the Chiefs did against Baltimore in their defense, to you, is that like this defense is in trouble and going to have some struggles this year? Or was it a one game, we had some stuff that wasn't working, we'll get back? Or is there a chance that this could be a shootout in a 35-plus point game again, like they saw last week?
It's possible. It's possible that it could be a shootout. I think for both teams, I think whichever team runs the ball better is going to win the game. And that sounds weird, right? We don't give a lot of respect to running the ball, but these are two of the worst teams in the NFL through 2 weeks in terms of rush defense. And Chiefs are allowing 6 yards per carry, and the Chargers aren't much better. I think they're at 5.6.
Yeah.
So I think whatever team runs the ball better, finds better balance there, is going to have the winning day on offense. And as far as the Chiefs defense is concerned, I think that it kind of reminds me of the 2019 game that they had late in the season against the Tennessee Titans. They go into Nissan Stadium. They'd won a bunch of games, a couple of games back to back there. And they go up against a run heavy team, and they're struggling. They couldn't get out of their own way. There were a lot of penalties. They were in position to win the game, and they let it slip away, kind of in the same type of fashion that happened out there in Baltimore. And that game was the last time they lost that season. I'm not saying that the Chiefs are going to go undefeated from here on out, but they used that moment in that game to fix some serious problems that they had. And I feel like there's enough season left ahead of the Chiefs right now that they can get this thing figured out, and that the defense isn't going to be necessarily what these first 2 games have shown. And I just think by being in Arrowhead, having been there for the week 1 game against the Cleveland Browns, that home field advantage is very, very real, especially for that defense. Yeah. And you also have to consider that, Justin Herbert, last time he was in Kansas City, not nearly as many fans. There are going to be 70,000 roaring Chiefs fans at Arrowhead on Sunday. So it's going to be a different experience for him too. So he's going to have to probably watch out for mistakes. He's going to have to be really sharp with getting the calls out, and when he's working with guys in the huddle, making sure that everybody knows their assignments. And, like you said, they've kind of struggled on offense so far. So that's going to be just another challenge that's going to kind of compound what they've had, those struggles so far. So,
yeah. And, Justin Herbert, as great as he is and how much we all love him, he has had some sloppy play and, poor turnovers and Last week had one in the red zone, which Keenan Allen fell down, but still thrown in the triple coverage. So things like that need to be cleaned up against a team like the Chiefs. And I keep forgetting you guys had fans last year. Like, I know it was like, 14,000, but still I keep forgetting that because we haven't had anything here in LA until this season finally.
Right. And it's a different environment too. And even last season, I mean, they had a lot of, opposing fans come out too. So
yeah, trying to see some live something.
Yeah, it was nice to have fans, but it's an entirely different experience going from the 13 to the 70,000. I can assure you.
Oh yeah, I would say top 5 hardest places to play in the NFL is at Arrowhead in Kansas City. So, you talk about the run defense and both these teams struggling. We talked on our last episode about how the Chargers on offense need to establish the run. I mean, Austin Eckler ran 9 times last game. They had 15 total rushes from running backs last game, even though they were in the game the entire time, whether tied or down one possession, and just seemed to kind of abandon it. So that's something that they want to, I think, will definitely try to establish. Brandon Staley has even said it all week long that they need to do a better job of calling run plays and getting their guys the ball. When you look at the Chiefs, for us, for Charger fans that don't know, outside of Chris Jones, who is on that defensive front, whether it's linemen or linebackers, that is called upon to stop the run? Because when we look just on the surface, Charger fans are probably thinking, okay, we can probably run the ball against the team, seeing what Baltimore did, seeing what Cleveland did. So who is tasked with stopping these guys on that Chiefs defense?
Right. You're going to have some big guys in the middle. Derek Noddy and Jaron Reed are probably going to be your main run stuffers that are in there. They'll rotate in Tershawn Wharton and Colin Saunders. So they've got a lot of big bodies along the interior that they can kind of keep guys fresh. The problem is that hasn't really helped them so much so far this season. Mm-hmm. They've been really struggling to get off blocks. Frank Clark is another guy out there on the edge. He's really sound setting the edge and with run defense. So that's someone you're going to have to watch for, assuming he plays. Him and Chris Jones were limited in practice today. And, Clark has had this nagging hamstring injury that it I guess popped up again today in practice. So that's never a good sign when you have a guy who's practicing in full, on Wednesday and then has a limited on Thursday. So that's a guy to watch. Beyond that, you get to the next level. You got our linebackers there right now. It's going to be Nick Bolton and Anthony Hitchens that you see most frequently. Nick Bolton, a rookie. And he's actually been really good against the run. He's when he can attack downhill, that's when he's at his best. And Hitchens, he's struggled against the run this year, struggled getting off blocks. He's a little lighter this year. He came in about, I think he said 7 pounds lighter this year. It's made him much better in coverage. He's our best coverage linebacker right now. But he has been kind of struggling early on here. And he's our Mike. He's the guy who's communicating throughout the defense. So he's someone that the Chiefs are really going to be leaning on to kind of right the wrongs of the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, that being said, it's a good segue because what this offense wants to do a lot is get backs involved in the passing game too, being that Saints style offense. Right. And we saw Eckler last week. He didn't have any catches in week 1. And then last week, I think he had 9. So is that like Hitchens' job, you think? Do you think they'll have more of a DB spy Eckler because of his speed and size?
I think that you're going to see Hitchens sometimes when, if they're in base, they're going to probably try to isolate Hitchens or one of the other guys on him. And that's going to be the matchup heaven for Eckler if that happens. I think if they put Sorensen on him, it'll probably be okay. Who's kind of one of our nickel DBs. They might match up Matthew or even one Thornhill on him sometimes. So they're going to rotate some guys in there. But I think that, that's what you want to do. You want to get the Chiefs in base and try to get Eckler, one-on-one with one of these linebackers, and he's going to have a big day.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the recipe for success for this Chargers team is get the run going and getting Eckler on these linebackers. And obviously we know what Keenan Allen and Mike Williams can do. How's your secondary been so far this year? We talked a lot about the rush defense, but how is obviously, Tyrann Mathieu, one of the best in the business. Juan Thornhurst's been a great surprise, but year 2 or 3 now, great late round draft pick that has worked out well for the Chiefs, but how has the overall secondary looked for you guys?
It's been good. We have some guys who have been there for a while. You've got, Travarius Ward, Rashad Fenton. They've been around for a while. Probably remember Fenton from that Mexico City game. I think he had an interception in that one.
Yeah.
But
a lot of guys did in that game.
Right. But I think the secondary has surprised a little bit. I think ahead of the season, people were thinking it was going to be a weakness, and it ended up being a strength. I mean, it's so much a strength that former first-round draft pick DeAndre Baker has been a healthy scratch the past 2 weeks because they're just confident in the guys they have out there. One of the new additions that you'll see there this year, Mike Hughes, we traded Vikings to acquire him. He's a guy that the Chiefs really liked. I think he was coming out the 2019 draft.
UCF, I think, loves him out of there.
Yeah, they were really high on him, and they traded a pick that year, and I think that was the year they traded to acquire Frank Clark. So they didn't have a first-round pick. They were hoping to get him in the second round, and the Vikings ended up taking him. He never really got off to a good start with the Vikings, had some injury issues and whatnot, but he's been fully healthy since he's shown up in Kansas City. And I mean, he had the game-sealing interception in week 1 there, and he's just really performed admirably, all things considered, coming to a new team and whatnot. So that's somebody to look out for. Then, like I said, the rest of the secondary, pretty much the same old faces, Tyrann Mathieu, Juan Thornhill, Daniel Sorensen, and Rashad Fenton. So, and you might see a little bit of Chris Lamons on special teams. He's a cornerback who they really like on special teams, man. He's fast. He's made some plays so far too.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember when you guys got Mike Hughes. I'm like, man, why do the good just get richer? Like, how does that happen? And DeAndre Baker too, who I know you said has been a healthy scratch, but 2 former first-round picks now as complementary defensive backs on your team. It's how you win Super Bowls. It's how you continue to get the cream of the crop.
And the thing about Baker is he's good enough to be starting, right? But they're lucky that they don't have to start him, that they have that depth.
Yeah. And that's, like you said, was considered a weakness and now is considered a strength. So, last thing, a couple things that will get you out of here. Obviously the Travis Kelsey, one of the best, not just tight ends, but just playmakers, receivers, whatever you want to call him, in the entire league. And what we haven't seen these last, or at least for sure last season, was the matchup of most likely Derwin James on Travis Kelsey, because Derwin James is out all year. And so when that happens, he's able to just kind of do his thing and to the tune of, over 100 yards in each matchup and kind of work his will against the defense. How do you see this matchup going with Derwin James finally back and healthy? He is the star, not just the star, but he actually plays like the star position for this team in their nickel and in their dime packages. And so we'll see him a lot on Travis Kelsey. How do you see this matchup going, and who do you like taking the overall, win, if you will?
I think Derwin's going to take the win. I mean, he has in the past when they've been matched up. And I mean, he's just a phenomenal player. Probably one of the only guys in the NFL who I could consistently trust to cover Travis Kelsey one-on-one.
Yeah.
But I think the Chiefs are in some ways going to dare Los Angeles to do that, because they've got 3 other tight ends now that aren't half bad. They've got Blake Bell. They've got Noah Gray, a rookie. And they've also got Jody Fortson, who's been just absolutely phenomenal in training camp in the preseason. So they've got these other guys, and if they're gonna end up isolating Travis Kelsey and Derwin James on Travis Kelsey, they're gonna try to test some of these other guys and see what they can get going elsewhere, and just let Derwin take Kelsey away, so to speak. If they have to get the ball going, get it to Tyreek out in space and whatnot, they'll do that as well. I think, last week it was kind of interesting, because really that first week it was the Travis Kelsey, Tyreek Hill show against Cleveland. But last week they got everybody going.
Yeah.
Byron Pringle had a big touchdown run. Mecole Hardman had the tie for the most targets on the team. Caught a lot of passes. So when you have DeMarcus Robinson, even he caught a long touchdown pass. So when you got some of these other guys who are kind of showing up now, it might make Staley rethink his idea here about trying to erase one of these top guys. You might have to kind of, so to speak, go with the flow and try to match some of these different guys up.
Yeah, when you have an embarrassment of riches on offense, it makes things hard on defense, and that's why they're so successful every week. So, all right, Charles, let's do this to get you out of here. We'll do a couple rapid fire prop bets, if you will, brought to you by Play Pickup. So super simple. We'll just do a couple player-on-player matchups. So more passing yards, Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes in just this game. Speaking, not season.
I'm going to go with Patrick
Mahomes. Yeah, I think it should be a good. I mean, we'll see who establishes the run first, and then who he's playing catch up a lot. So I might go Justin Herbert because I think they're going to be playing catch up, trying to catch up to this Chiefs team. More rushing yards, Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Austin Eckler?
I think Eckler is probably going to get more.
Okay.
I mean, Andy Reid doesn't like to run the ball. We know this.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, CHE is the biggest thorn in every fantasy player's side because they think he's like he's a starting running back and then just never gets that many points. More receiving. Yeah, we'll just stick with yards. More receiving yards, Tyreek Hill or Keenan Allen?
I'm gonna go with Tyreek on this one.
Tyreek, okay. More sacks, Joey Bosa or probably we'll go Frank Clark. I think Chris Jones moved outside this year, didn't he? Is he more of a pass rusher now?
Chris Jones is out on the edge this year, correct?
Yeah, so I don't know who you would consider your specialist there. They're both pretty damn good, but we'll go Joey Bosa versus the field. Who has more sacks?
I think Bosa has more sacks. The Chiefs have really struggled to get their pass rush going so far, and I think they're going to have to scheme up some stuff to get it going. So you might see some blitzes from the secondary or stuff like that getting after Herbert, but I just don't know how effective their 4-man rush is going to be.
Yeah, and it's Joey Bosa was ultimately shut down last week, at least on the stat sheet against the Cowboys. So I know Mahomes is so hard to bring down and hard to actually get after, but he's going to be looking to bounce back after that performance. So I think he comes out hungry. Okay, let's do last one. More tackles. Kaiser White's been kind of leading the Chargers, has had a resurgence in his career, has looked so good in this defense with Brandon Staley, and has been probably the best backer on the field, even opposed to Drew Tranquil and Kenneth Murray. So let's go Kaiser White and Anthony Hitchens. I think they kind of play a similar role. So who more tackles on Sunday?
I'm going to go with Hitch. I think Hitch is due for a big tackle game.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see. So, well, Charles, we got to do a score prediction. I know it's silly every time, but we got to do it. Who you got? You got the Chiefs going to 2-1 or dropping to 1-2?
Yeah, I think Kansas City is going to win this one. I still think it's going to be close. I think they're going to win by about 6 points, probably something like 30-24.
Yeah. I agree. My heart wants to take the Chargers just because I think the tough loss to the Cowboys last week, knowing what Brandon Staley can do. I know he's a young head coach, but knowing what he's just done as a coach so far in his career, I know he's going to have these guys fired up. They're going to play a lot cleaner because they had 12 penalties last week. So they're going to look a lot better. But at home, at Arrowhead, in Kansas City, like you said, 72,000 fans. They're lucky they get to play him in September and not November. But I still think the Chiefs are just going to be a little too much. Also coming off a tough, heartbreaking loss. So I agree. I think it's going to be, I'll go 3-point difference. So whatever, I don't even know what the spread is, but I'm going to go Chiefs by 3. It'll be close.
I think the spread was 6.5 last I checked.
Wait, you have it that high? Okay.
Yeah. I think it's that Arrowhead advantage. And I also think that they're putting some stock into the fact that Staley is a first-year head coach and that Andy Reid is Andy Reid. Right. I do think that maybe later this year, if it doesn't happen this week, later this year, it's possible in LA that the Chargers get one over on the Chiefs.
Yeah, it seems like if any team split, it seems to be the Chiefs and Chargers. So should have been last year, but I guess they technically did, but it was all the backups. But it could have been a 2-0 sweep to Chargers if they didn't blow it at the end there. But should be a good one. Charles Goldman, managing editor for the Chiefs Wire. Thanks, brother, for joining me. Appreciate you as always.
Hey, thanks for having me on anytime.
Yeah, where can everyone find you out on Twitter and all your work?
You can find me at GoldMCTNFL on Twitter. You can also follow at the Chiefs Wire. And check us out, chiefswire.usatoday.com. There you go. I don't know why Chargers fans would want Chiefs content, but if you do, you know where to go. Check out my guy, Charles. So thanks, man. I appreciate you. Enjoy the game. I'm sure we'll tweet or something at each other back and forth, but have fun, okay? Absolutely. You too, Ryan. All right. This is going to be a tough matchup for the Chargers. We'll see how it goes. So I think the Chiefs take it, both coming off tough losses, like I said in the interview. I think the Chiefs take it by 3, but I think the Chargers are going to come out hungry, and they're going to come out playing well
And if they lose, it's going to be because the Chiefs beat them. I don't think the Chargers are going to beat themselves again. I think they kind of beat themselves against the Cowboys. Too many penalties, not a clean game, as Staley said many times. So if they lose this, it'll be because the Chiefs are just a little better still. And that's no surprise. Like, the Chargers are a work in progress. I don't think if anyone came out this year and said, I think they can be a playoff team, but if anyone came out this year and said they're the best team in the AFC West, they have more talent than the Chiefs, person probably doesn't watch football. So if they can take the Chiefs to the brink and play clean football and get beat by a better team, I'm 100% okay with that. So let's see that happen. All right, let's jump into Cory Paus. Welcome, my friend, UCLA quarterback Cory Paus. Joining me now on the LA Football Show, right here on the LA Football Network, also on the mightier AM 1090. He played quarterback for your UCLA Bruins. One of the great ones. We were talking at the game last week about one of the stat he still holds above all quarterbacks, which we'll get to. But Cory Paus, my man, what's up? Thanks for joining the show. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Ryan. How are you, man? I didn't think you were gonna. I didn't think you were gonna throw that out there like that. But I can't wait to discuss that fantastic statistic.
Well, yeah. Let's just get into it then. So, what was it? It was most air yards completed. You still lead every quarterback ever to play UCLA.
Well, yeah, well, yes, a friend of mine sent me an article because DTR has passed me up in the record books, I believe, in touchdowns, last week or the week before, and a buddy of mine, sent me the note because it was in the LA Times, whatever, blah blah blah. So and then I was at the game and I started looking at some of the the career rankings, and when you look at how many plays that we ran, with me under center, and how many yards we got with me taking the snap, we produced more yards per play than any other quarterback. So, and Cade's right behind me. So when next time I see Cade, you better believe I'm going to tell him. And that's even in consideration with my negative rushing yardage of negative 427, which I also lead all UCLA quarterbacks in with negative rushing yardage. So
two of which might not be broken.
Like a true humble brag,
Yeah, I love it. That's great, though. I don't think it'll be broken. So, above Troy Aikman and all those guys. So, but man, I'm so pumped to have you on and talk to you. I've gotten to know Cory here over the last couple years, and just an awesome guy, a great football player at his time at UCLA and all that, but also just a great human being. So it's been so fun getting to know you. And so I thank you for joining me and talking some UCLA. But first, before we get into the game, you host your own show, Something's Bruin podcast, 50 episodes. They're all great, lively, fun to watch. What's going on with the show? Is the show coming back? What's going on with it? Haven't heard it in a while.
Yeah, man. I was, it bums me out every now and then, but to answer that question, I appreciate you asking because I love doing it. And, the last, probably 20 to 25 shows, we had a lot of people listening. So if anyone that used to listen to the show is listening to your show, which I'm sure there's plenty, I appreciate you guys listening. Everybody that did listen, I don't know when I'm going to be coming back with it. I know someday I'll bring something back, but it was just becoming, I moved out of Los Angeles after 20 years down into Orange County. So my studio, my co-producer, producer Dan, was really close to my, our old house, and it was really convenient. And I like doing the podcast in a formal studio. I'm not a tech guy. I'm not going to do a good job on my own with the computer and the microphones and everything. I need somebody to set it up, and I will pay to do so, but then, sports stopped, and a lot of sports stopped, at least the way that we watch sports forever stopped. It became, the election happened, sports became extremely political. They're still political, but they're not as bad as they were about a year ago. And it just bummed me out to the point where I didn't even want to go and do the show, because half of the time we would end up talking to my my co-host, who's definitely left of center, and myself, who's definitely not left of center. And it would just turn into a political argument that I didn't think our listeners would enjoy. So plenty of listeners might enjoy it, but I think there might
entertainment
have been
in its own right.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe someday it'll come back from in a more of a sports meets pop culture / politics, which the show was. But
Mhm.
I appreciate you asking. I expect to bring it back in some fashion someday because I really do miss it, and I had a hell of a lot of fun doing it, and I do miss it. So thanks for asking.
Yeah. Well, no, I loved it, man. It was always fun, and you're great at it. So we'll be looking forward to that. But hey, you're welcome here on the LA Football Show anytime you want, which I think we'll have fun doing. And spoiler, what I'll say, I've been talking behind the scenes, but not really put it out there. But we're in the works, hopefully. I mean, there's no time frame, but we're in the works of hopefully creating an LA football studio so that we can do these in person. Because I'm the same way. I hate doing these remote. Like I'm sitting here staring at a camera looking at you. I'd rather be sitting drinking a beer with you side by side, talking to a microphone, just shooting the whatever, having fun. So that's in the works. So maybe once the studio's open and we're doing that, then you can just show up, sit down, beer in hand, talking to a mic, not have to worry about setting up. Then it'll be a little easier, right?
That would be fantastic. So I look forward to that, but I'll keep doing it this way until we upgrade slightly.
There we go. Fair enough. So, but Cory, let's get into these Bruins because this has been the most excitement around this team we've had in quite some time. Starting 2-0, big win.
You mean because we finally won a non-conference game?
Yeah, that and we were started 2-0 for the first time under Chip Kelly. We started 1-0 for the first time under Chip Kelly, I think. So a lot of things to be excited about. And then it kind of comes, I'll get your perspective. I wrote about it after the game last week, the tough loss to Fresno State. I have a different mindset. I thought, horrible loss, heartbreaking. Obviously Pac-12 should be on West, blah, blah, blah. I can get into my perspective. But I want to get your perspective. Lose this game to Fresno State, who, now is ranked in the top 25, has played some good ball. They took Oregon to the brink. All that is fun and whatever. But what were just your thoughts of this loss? And was it another low for this team, or was it, we saw some good things. I was disappointed, but I think there's something to build from it.
Unfortunately, I wasn't shocked that we lost the game. I went into the game optimistic. I gambled on us. I wanted us to win, but at the same time, the fact that we lost was just another typical example of what happens when we don't put all of the pieces together and we consistently act like, well, we're going to go back and get better. And DTR will, showed signs of greatness in the last quarter and a half. And you name it. I'm tired of it. And I know a lot of other Bruin fans are too. With that said though, yes, we're still ranked. We're 2-1. Again, we hadn't won a non-conference game since Chip got here. So, okay, check. Great. But at the same time, it's like we got our quarterback's going into his third year starting. We started 20 freshmen a couple of years ago. I mean, what's wrong with us being 3-0? And like everybody wanted it to happen that way. I think we arguably should have if we would have played much better in the first three quarters. And I was extremely disappointed with the fact that we came back, showed a lot of heart and a lot of character to get back in the game, even though 2 fumbles fell in our laps. But we obviously had to make the play. But then we go down and score and act like everyone was like, you could see on the sideline, it seemed like we were almost like relieved. Oh, phew, we came back, we took the lead, and oh man, we're gonna win the game. If you go back and watch the film, watch the footage, watch the way DTR was acting, almost like he was like so relieved that we were going to win. Well, there was still 50-something seconds left on the clock, and we went into prevent yourself from winning defense, and hats off to the Fresno State quarterback. That kid played freaking awesome. But and hats off to the whole Fresno team. But again, lots of kids on that Fresno team. I believe many of them came from UCLA even. Not to mention plenty of them would have loved to go to UCLA. They're all super talented. They're obviously very athletic. They took Oregon to the brink. They're a good team. They deserve to be ranked. I just don't think that we deserve to be ranked 13th in the country. And so I think it was unfortunate because it gave all Bruin fans a little bit of a sense of false hope. And then just like that, we lose to Fresno State. So, is it shocking? No, unfortunately, under the last 3 years, no, this isn't shocking at all. So, but at the same time, there's a lot of football left, and now we're getting ready for the Pac-12 conference. And, it's just, I like, that's like, how many times do we have to listen to that over and over and over? It's like, are we going to vie to be a top Pac-12 team or not? So, and I don't think that we will ever be, until DTR moves on. So, but I hope I'm wrong. But if you watch that whole game and you watched, by now he should not be making as many mistakes as he's making in reading the defense. Period. And I don't understand why we can't, like, you never hear anything about that, but all you hear about is his growth and like how he brought us back. Well, if we would have played better in the first 3 quarters, we would have won by 20.
Yeah.
So, that's the type of thing that's frustrating, because I think Chip is calling a freaking awesome game, has an awesome game plan. We don't need to get in all the defense, but Chip has, Chip has done a fantastic job the last 3 years, and we could be so much better, in my opinion. But I was a hater on my show for the last couple of years with DTR, because he didn't show me any reason that we were going to be taken to the top of the Pac-12. But again, look, what's his record? Period. Like, that's it. And Chip Kelly has called way better games than that record should be. And so, but I love to eat my words, and I will be the first one to come on your show. And if we win the next 4 games in a row, and we're 6-1, and we're sitting atop the Pac-12 South, I'll be the first one to come on your show and tell you why I think differently than what I'm saying right now.
Yeah,
that's
fair. It's great. And you said that all along. You said, I want to be proven wrong. I want DTR to prove me wrong. I just haven't seen it yet. And you, of all people, I think can say that, being a former D1 quarterback and doing it at that level. I want to talk to you about one play before we kind of start shifting towards this Stanford game and what this team can be moving forward. But because I met up with you at the Rose Bowl at this game, which was awesome. You invited me to come hang out with you, have a beer, which is always great, always a blast. 4th and 1, UCLA was moving the ball. They're down. I think at the time they may have even taken the lead. I can't remember, but it was a close game in the second half. Down. It's 4th and 1. They call a QB draw play, and instead of just hitting you need 1 yard, DTR does like a sweep to the outside and ends up losing 3 or 4. You were furious. Everyone was furious around us. Like, what in that do you see where you're like, okay, was that a play call, or was that him manipulating, thinking, no, I need to move the outside, and just made a horrible read?
Again, I guarantee the play that Chip called was not called quarterback sweep. It was called quarterback sneak. Okay. Yeah. And I can't imagine that's not accurate, because it's called quarterback sneak. You go straight forward to get a yard and a half. Okay. Period. And it's like it's the improvising is fantastic when it works, but when it's at critical moments, you just got to run a quarterback sneak. But you didn't hear any, like, we're not even allowed to, like, no one, like, they don't even talk about that. Like, forget about that. Like it's not even doesn't even come up. Chip never mentions it. Like, whatever. It's like we just move on, and nobody thinks about the fact that he literally ran a completely the wrong play when the game is on the line. So again, quarterback sneak, not quarterback sweep. So I mean, like, I've listened and watched a bunch of folks, and that was a tough part of the game. Again, we still should have won the game if we would have just played a little better defense at the end. But but I'm not the type of guy that's like, oh, but we really, it was so close and it's heartbreaking. Like that's another thing that I was like tired of reading all week about how heartbreaking it is. It's like, oh my gosh, like seriously? Like we were 2-0 and ranked 13 in the country. Like that, we lost to Fresno State because we didn't play well enough for the whole game. Like, no, heartbreaking is losing in the freaking Pac-12 championship when you have a fantastic game and you lose by 1 to the better team. Okay, like that's another thing that sort of threw me, didn't make me happy all week about like that's the type of coverage that's getting like, oh, that was like the headline about it was heartbreaking. Okay, yeah, well, like that's nothing compared to what
was better.
Yeah, it was a shitty loss. Period. It's like, well, I just wish we could be a little bit more, honest about what's happening, and maybe we will. I don't know. We'll see. So I mean, when you talk about the Stanford game, look at this is the type of game that we historically will lose, right? To a tougher Stanford team. I think we're going to bounce back well. And I think we're going to win. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a yo-yo season. I think it's going to be a yo-yo season. It's going to be a total roller coaster where it'll be signs of greatness, and then we will lose to teams we shouldn't lose to. So far, that's been the case. Fresno State could go undefeated the rest of the year and prove to be a better team. But I think overall we were a better team than Fresno State, and we lost to them. So I just don't like losing to teams that we are better than. So I'll get back to you after the Stanford game, as I haven't seen Stanford play enough. I know they beat SC when the second game of the year. I didn't get a chance to see that game either. Did you get a chance to see that game? Like, how good is Stanford? I'm not sure.
Well, and I'm not sure either, because I was there, and obviously Stanford put the nail in the coffin on Clay Helton because they blew the doors off of USC. But then you see the week prior, and they lose to Kansas State. So it's like, what really is this Stanford team? I mean, they're always well coached with David Shaw. They have a good young quarterback that now is named the starter, who was in the beginning of the year. They have some decent playmakers, but UCLA is the better team again this week. I think they'll go in as a better team. They have the better offensive line. They have better playmakers on offense. They have the better running game. And then it comes down to defense, how they can slow down the Stanford team. Because what Stanford did against USC is they got a ton of gash plays, which is not typical of what USC likes to give up, but they just got big plays. And Fresno State kind of got that too against UCLA. So it's how this defense bounces back, which will be the real storyline of this game, I think, and how they're able to neutralize what USC wants to do on offense, and how they can, slow down their attacks. They're not giving up these big. I think in the SC game, Stanford had like 3 or 4 like 35+ yard touchdowns. They had big plays all over the place, and so UCLA, if they can cut that down, I think they're much better team. And it starts with the running game. I mean, what do you think of Zach Charbonnet and Britton Brown? And unfortunately, we really didn't see them much against Fresno State, but overall, they've been great this year. What's your thoughts on the running backs?
It was awesome, and that's the reason we won the first and the second game, right? Guess what? The third game, the defense did a better job of stopping our running game, right? So who has to win the game for us, right? Consistently. So unfortunately, if we get the running game back on track, then obviously we have a great chance to win, or we can catch another one of Washington State is where we, have a bunch of great, crazy plays, and it works out into our favor and we win. But I would much rather see go back to seeing a consistent running game. It's so much easier for DTR to play sound quarterback when you have a good running game. Obviously the play action becomes so much easier. The windows are far more open. He doesn't have to read the defense as much, on these critical third and medium plays, which is, in my opinion, his downfall in playing quarterback so far. So, I would love to get our running game back on track. And if we do, I guarantee we'll win. But to your point, you think Shaw and the Stanford coaching staff doesn't have any tape, right?
Yeah.
So
they know it's going to be
a great test. Yeah, it's going to be a great, and it's extremely difficult to win in Stanford. It always has been. So I can't wait to watch it. I'm actually looking forward to not being at Terry Donahue Pavilion, not having to go to a football game on Sunday. I can't wait to watch the freaking game on TV. I didn't get to watch. I watched one play at the game at LSU, entertained 30 people. It was a fantastic experience. Nothing better than having the Rose Bowl full of people, by the way, as you probably can imagine, and you probably agree. But I didn't even get to watch the game until I taped it. I didn't TiVo it. I taped it and watching
VCR?
that, when they have, Yeah, exactly. You know that 60-minute, the E60 or the 60-minute clips on Pac-12 Network.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
haven't seen that, so you get to watch the whole game in 60 minutes.
yeah. Condensed.
So
Yeah,
I didn't. Yeah, and so I hadn't watched any of the plays until I got home 2 days later and finally watched it. But so I'm looking forward to actually sitting down and watching, watching the whole game. I'll hopefully, you'll have me back on and I'll give you
yeah.
my next opinion of what's going on. So
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see a good bounce back. I think we will. I'm a glass half full guy. I'm always optimistic, but I agree with you. I think Chip has coached some really good games, and it's going to come down to how DTR bounces back. If Stanford does, stack the box with 8-9 people, how he responds and how he's able to do it, which he, to his credit, I'll say he did respond late in the game, but you need it for all 4 quarters, not just, on 3 or 4 drives, but he did respond late in the game, threw some good passes. So it'll be exciting to see how he responds to Stanford. So, kind of last thing for you, Cory, before I get you out of here, but I'm just curious your thoughts on this last player, because he's a guy I've loved with UCLA from the beginning, but we, and a lot of it, when you play receiver, it's really predicated on how good your quarterback is if you're going to show up on the stat sheet. But Kyle Phillips is a guy I love. I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in this conference, has a ton of ability and talent, but he just doesn't get talked about because they just don't throw the ball a ton. But he had a monster game against Fresno State. What's kind of your thoughts on Kyle Phillips and how good he can actually be for this season as they continue to move on and hopefully continue to open the playbook up?
Well, I didn't see him much, of the game, of the plays that I did see in the first two games. I didn't see him much out there. I didn't see him, at least targeted that much either. I think he's dangerous on the punt return side as well. I feel like hopefully last week, even though it was a loss, it's a little bit of a coming out party, because I thought he was one of our best receivers, if not one of our best weapons last year, certainly towards the end of the season as well. But yeah, I like him, but we have a lot of guys that I think are really good. But I agree with you. He reminds me of Tyler Ebel, because not just because they wore the same number, but they were both pretty little. And for those Bruin fans out there that remember Tyler Ebel back in the day, he was a little younger than our year, but he reminds me of him a lot. And I've always liked Tyler, and I like Kyle, and I like everybody on this team, and I like DTR too. I just I don't mean to be so critical of him all the time, but until you prove me wrong consistently. This I don't do this for I don't even do this for a living, but so that's what but I wish him the best, and I wish us, because that will be great for all of us.
Exactly.
I don't want to continue to be right. I'm looking forward to this game again, to be able to get a chance to watch it, and hopefully we'll bounce back in a big way.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I'll get you out in this, Cory. I think they bounce back. I think they come out big against the Farm. Game is up in Stanford. I believe it's like a 3:00 kickoff or something, but I think they bounce back. I think they come back with a big win, move to 3-1. Again, you haven't watched on Stanford, but your thoughts? You think they get the win, they move back to 3-1 and the positive note, and we'll have you back after that, or do you think they struggle in this team?
No, I think we will win. History would show that this is the type of game we'll win.
Yeah.
And it will most likely create this gut-wrenching feeling inside myself and all the other big Bruin fans that can sit there and say, yeah, well now we're 3-1 and everything, but then it's hard to not think about, because we expect to play for national championships eventually. And no Pac-12 team, and certainly no UCLA team, is making it to a playoff with one loss. So so as soon as you lose the first game, the reality is that you're not going to playoffs this year.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, that's the reality of it. But yeah, I'll take a big bowl game. I'll take a big win, and hopefully we don't have as much of that roller coaster dip like we have in years past. So hopefully this is the start of the roller coaster going back up, and we can keep it going and put a nice little run together. That would be ideal. And but I'll be there the whole way. I've missed 0 games in like 15 years, and I'm not going anywhere. So
Love it.
I hope we come back, and I hate Stanford like almost as much as I hate Oregon. So,
Okay.
I hope we win.
I love it. Yeah. And historically, we've played pretty good with Chip against Stanford, surprisingly. Joshua Kelly had that huge 180-yard game when we beat Stanford 2 years ago when we were a 3-win team, but Stanford was one of our wins when they were ranked.
Yeah.
And then last year, we lost in the very end of the game, very end of the season, but it was a close game, went to overtime. So should be a good one for us.
I need Joshua Kelly to. I actually drafted Joshua Kelly on my fantasy team because I'm
he's been a healthy scratch. Get him on the field.
Yeah, I know. I put some some time and energy and money into the Chargers, and I was like, well, gotta draft him. I think I drafted him a little early though. I think I drafted the 5th or 6th round because everybody on the message board of my league is like, oh, you're such an idiot.
Yeah.
But whatever. I'm still a UCLA homer, even though sometimes I might not sound like it.
There you go. Did you see Demetric Felton's touchdown last week for the Cleveland Browns?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Baller.
Great.
It's a baller. Yeah. I got to get you one of our Demetric Felton shirt we've made. I got to get you one of those. So,
man, I loved him, dude. He was great. He was awesome. It was awesome.
So good. Such a good kid.
All right, man.
Too.
Well, listen, I appreciate you having me on, and for sure, agreed. But cool. Well, listen, Ryan, I appreciate it. I'll come back anytime, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
Absolutely, yeah. Cory Paus, great UCLA Bruin. Great analysis always. Thanks, man, for joining me, and we'll definitely be in touch soon. Appreciate you. All right, that's going to do it for us. That's all the time I have, guys. Like I said, all these interviews full length on LAFBnetwork.com, LAFB Network YouTube, or LA Football Podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Go subscribe, do whatever you got to do. Follow us. Reach out to me on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud LAFB. Would love to meet you. Let me know if you listen to the show. Drop me a line. Ryan, listen to you on Fridays on the Mightier. Let me know what you want to see. If there's certain guests you want, players you want, we'll do our best to give you what you guys deserve. LA just doesn't get the Southland in general just doesn't get great football coverage. Tune into ESPN. You're not going to hear anything about the Rams or Chargers. Definitely not the Chargers, but they're the flagship for the Rams, and you're going to hear more about the Patriots than you will about the Rams. So we're trying to change that here. But let me know if there's anything you want done, any interviews you want, and we'll do our best to make it happen. I'm Ryan Dyrud. This is the LA Football Show. Have a great weekend, guys. Always remember, good teams win, great teams cover. Have a great weekend. See you next week. Peace.